Remix. 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 Remix.
Oh, yeah. Welcome out. This is the Remix Morning Show. Right here on Black Liberation Media. In case you didn't know, I go by the name of the Ear Doctor. We came here to bring you that boom bap breakfast right here in the flesh. Let's introduce you to our host with the most, starting off with no other than Erica King and Jackie Luman. Again in your life. Ooh, not like some music soul child in the morning.
Yeah.
Y'all looking lovely.
Thank you.
Stunning.
Yeah.
Let me find some more words.
Think of some more.
I'm
Come on.
thinking.
I mean, I wasn't complaining. But
Awestruck.
no, we can't.
You look awestruck or you're awestruck?
That.
Yeah, I'm awestruck.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You know what I was thinking?
Mm.
I was thinking that we should come up with another segment of political terms that y'all could give me, and I could break it down for the people that don't understand these different terms.
That would be a short-lived.
What you mean? There's a lot of people out here that don't understand what an oligarchy is. You know what I mean? Oligarchy.
See what I mean?
Exactly.
It would be a short-lived.
Right, because I'm like, and so that we would then explain it to you, and you would explain it to people.
Yes, a way that they can understand.
Like a hood translator type of.
Exactly.
Well, you know how I feel about that on TikTok.
No, I don't. Tell us. How do you
I
feel
do not
about
appreciate it at all.
How do they do it on
dead
TikTok?
wrong. Maybe dead wrong. No citations, no nothing. But they can roll their neck and break it down. So
Well, I wouldn't do all that. I would, break it down as an African studies scholar that I am for Morris Brown. Come on.
The only reason why I wouldn't give you shit for that is because of John Baraka taught there. So, there has to be something to it.
Oh, we have some of the greatest professors. Dr. Mario Beatty, Dr. Masiki Scales. Well, not Dr. Masiki Scales. Yeah, a bunch of them.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So, did you go to college? Any of y'all? Either of y'all go to college?
I mean,
I went. Say, I went.
Yeah.
Oh, so
I have not returned.
Y'all realized I wasn't gonna get in debt. Y'all was like, I'm out of here.
I mean,
well, it was a bunch of things, really. Like my grades were where they were. I mean, obviously I could have did better, but I didn't really have any incentive to. And then there was just a bunch of other things happening at the time, personal things. So I left. But I went to Morgan.
Okay.
Go Bears.
Good to be here. And you, Jackie?
I just got bored. I mean, I got bored. I was doing what I liked to do at the time, which was I was a proposal writer, a technical writer. I wrote, users manuals, and I love that kind of stuff. So I was like, what am I getting this degree for?
What was you going to get? What was you majoring in?
Sociology.
Yeah, initially I was supposed to go to Parsons. Got accepted to Parsons, but the out-of-state tuition boy for New York City in a private school at that.
Yeah.
So I got a bunch of grants to go to Morgan my senior year.
Okay.
I was one of those overachievers.
My degree leads me to believe I've bested y'all in a part of life.
Oh, because you have a degree?
Oh, that's because you could.
Well, let me believe that, in fact.
Because you have a particular piece of paper.
Yeah,
My intellectual prowess is far beyond yours right now.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, because you have a particular piece of paper that
Yes,
that
that has my name on it.
okay.
And,
I mean, I have plenty of
I was like,
pieces of paper with my name on it.
I'm
And-
certified.
it's funny because now I really steer a lot of kids away from college. I'll be like, yo, get a trade, bro. Get a trade. You're not that smart. I mean, come on. Am I wrong?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I did the debt alone, right? Because even I say I did maybe 3 semesters at Morgan
Mm.
before I left. The state, Maryland State, still snatches my taxes still, and I left Morgan 2005.
Damn.
Yeah. So the little bit of time I went there, just from the partial loan that I had to take out, because at the time, my dad, even though he was deceased, I was still getting Social Security through my dad, which the federal government, FAFSA, then declared, oh no, bitch, you got money. So so I had to take out my own personal loans on top of my grants. So even if they weren't big, the interest and all of that. So I would say that the amount of money that people accumulate through debt from school does warrant looking at other alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't dismiss school entirely. I think it's useful. I got a lot of use out of it, even for the minimal time that I did go. I have lifelong friends from the minimal time that I did go. In fact, like I'm going to go celebrate my friend's her daughter's 16th birthday next weekend in Jersey. So, and we haven't seen each other really since Morgan. So, in that aspect, I think it's worth going. I think the professors you meet, the type of dialogue and struggle that it invites you to have, the ways that it invites you to think is useful. But against the debt,
yeah. Well, what say you? Come out, K. Franklin.
Good morning.
hey,
Good morning. Hi.
Wow.
Wipe
I
that
made
sleep
it
out your
to
eyes.
what happened?
I said, wipe that sleep out your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like it was a little irritation. I'm good though. I'm good. I appreciate that.
No doubt, no doubt. You graduated from college?
Excuse me, sir.
right.
I mean,
Like
Hello.
running
Wait a
around
minute.
calling
Wait a minute.
himself
Wait a minute.
attorney.
I'm
I
the
hope
only-
he did.
I'm the only one.
what?
I'm
You're the only one
that
that
graduated from college on this screen.
You're the only one that did?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm a lawyer. Well, I mean, what do you think I had to do?
That's I was like, I would hope so. As
You
a
don't
parent,
know.
Oh,
That's
a
my
lawyer.
plan. Oh.
I'm not sure. You have the
I mean,
college
what you
student
do?
who got to do 20 years. That was like,
Are we
I mean-
saying that he's allegedly an attorney now?
I
Is that
like-
what we're saying?
Your
I mean,
Honor. I don't
he
know
always
what
says
is
he
going on up in
practiced.
here.
I mean, a lot of people practice, but I don't mean they got on the court
True.
to really.
I have a degree, an undergrad degree, a graduate degree, and a law school degree. Yeah, fool. I went to a lot of colleges.
Okay, I got another scholar on the screen. I feel not so alone.
So what was the question though?
There wasn't one.
Oh.
It was just
I was asking him about college and either doing that or going to a trade school. We might have talked about that before, but I just encourage trade schools right now.
I think it all depends. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you really
I will tell you that sometimes I do think, I should just go ahead and finish the degree and just get it over with. But I'm just like, I don't have that kind of money where I would, be able to do that and not pay for it myself and not have to take out, loans and that kind of thing, which I'm not doing again because that little bit of money that I did take out, they're not getting it. They ain't getting it from me. I'm not going to willingly give it to them. But I do regret not staying in college right out of high school. Because I think I do regret the college, not having the college experience.
That's really all it's about.
Which, I think is kind of beneficial because, you learn how to socialize at a different level, I think. You learn how to problem solve a little differently, or you should, you know. So for that, and I do think that there is some benefit to being able to take critical thinking and logical reasoning to engage in struggle, ideological struggle on a higher or a different level, I think. But at the same time, you don't have to go to college to get that, right? So I wouldn't dissuade people from going to college if that's what they want to do. I tell people, like I told my cousins and my family when they asked me, I said, if there's a specific thing that you want to do, because one is she's in pharmacology. So if there's a specific thing that you want to do that requires the education, requires you to have this piece of paper, to show this experience, then yeah, definitely you need to go to college. But if you're not really interested in a particular specialized field and you just kind of want to see what you like and
trying to figure it out, right?
Dear God, you're 17. You don't know what you want. and that's okay. And it's okay to do different things until you figure out what it is that you want. If you want to go to college, cool, go to college. But if you find yourself in a profession that you're good at and that you enjoy and it pays so that's my advice to people. I don't push college on everybody's kid, but I also don't push trades on everybody's kids, because
just don't go to the military. Avoid
that.
Yeah, that's what I always say. I ain't gonna lie.
That is universal.
Yeah.
I was going to say quickly, that was my experience of I wasn't sure what I was going to do after graduating. I think I told my sad tales around sort of me and my friend from school. We decided we were going to be men and get jobs, got bullshit jobs. They lasted 5 seconds, got fired. And my man got shot in his projects, and somebody else told me about it. And it was one of those things. It's like, yeah, maybe I should do something, whatever. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. My undergrad degree is in marketing management. It is probably the lowliest degree that you could ever get in any college, in terms of not giving you any concrete knowledge, but a lot of theory about how to sell things to people, basically. But that was the time period of me getting politicized and having access to the library. It was Baruch College. Actually, was great for me because I got to go read books about Black history and political thought and so forth. And so that was fantastic. But it was like a wandering. And by my later years, after I got politicized, I decided to go to grad school and study political science, because then by that time I was doing political education, obviously in different groups, but I wanted a more sort of formal curriculum that gave me some basis of even if I thought a lot of it was bullshit, to be honest, but still it was like this formalized curriculum of boom, boom, boom. And then law school. Yeah. So I agree. I wouldn't say everybody should go, but and particularly with the money woes, which are purposeful these days in terms of what they charge, the loans, the sort of chaining you to a corporate world in terms of trying to pay those back. But I do think it definitely has value in terms of quote unquote higher education. Certainly don't think that, but I think trade schools, if you look at Germany's done an excellent job of creating systems of trade schools for folks who want to go in trade schools, where people make livable wage salaries for themselves, far more than livable wage salaries. So they've created a system that doesn't necessarily say only college, but other trade schools that, again, are real trade schools, not like some of the fake ones that we got here or whatever. So yeah. So I think those systems.
I think
university
YouTube academia should go to get a better joke school. The ear doctor went to college and believe in flat earth. All right, let's go ahead and get to a break so we can get to some news. They be trying to get at me. You can't get at me. All right, so let's go ahead and take a quick break, and then we go come back with some more right here on No Other Than the Remix Morning Show. Let's go. right, let's start it off with a remix on the remix.
Baby, 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 baby. From the day I saw you, I really, really want to catch your eye. There's something special about you. I must really like you. There's not a lot of guys that worth my time. Oh, baby, 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 it's getting kind of crazy. 'Cause you are taking over my mind, and it feels like you don't know my name. I swear.
Standing next to the promise, can't promise.
All right, let me take you to a place in time. Let me take you to the year 2021. We talk about 2021, not too far back. We talk about Benny the Butcher off his album The Plugs I Met Too. That's with 38 Splash and Jadakiss. Mixed with a little bit of 2003. We talk about Alicia Keys, Diary of Alicia Keys, and the name of that song is You Don't Know My Name. All right, that's your remix on the remix. Please make sure y'all hit that like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, go to patreon.com, become a member over there, get footage that's rare, and also what you could do is you can donate at blkliberationmedia.org. That allows us to keep this train moving, and we very much appreciate your support. Become a Patreon member while you're at it. All right, with that said, let's keep moving right here on the Remix Morning Show. Let's go.
Let's go. Quarter thing, half a thing, whole thing. Daydreaming, thinking about cocaine.
A lot of drug rap there. All right, there you go.
That was good, as always. I'm telling you, man, you need a mixtape of that stuff.
I am. It's coming out this month.
Is it like Kamal's favorite jams? Produced by the
yeah.
Head Doctor?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
just remember, I told you first when the checks start rolling in. Okay.
You told me what?
I told him first.
You did not. Absolutely
I
did
did
not.
so.
No, there's a historical record.
We have
written
private
down.
conversations. We just
I'll
don't. Me
find
and
it.
the Head Doctor had breakfast together, so we talk about a lot of
You should
things.
have public
All right,
conversations.
all right,
where
Dang, I didn't even get a chance to really sit back and enjoy that beat. Doggone it. Oh, thank you.
Thank
You
you.
didn't get.
Continue.
Oh no, that's it. I wasn't about to talk
Oh,
about
why'd you
breakfast with Kamal.
put who's the other cat on the line? His face was covered.
Oh, that was Tony Montana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was from Scarface.
That picture was?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'll show it to you real quick. You remember the
me see.
scene when they was talking and he went to go visit the plug?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
That movie
Yes.
upsets me still.
Scarface, really?
He could have
Everything
just
about that movie was just,
He could have just stopped. Like, he didn't need to keep going. He could have just stopped.
We're gonna have to do a movie review on certain movies too. That's another thing we're adding to the Remix Morning Show soon, y'all. All right,
Oh,
Reviewers?
oh,
I'm out of here.
mm.
Good morning, everybody. VMix Morning Show, Wednesday morning, here with Jackie Lukman, Erica Keynes, Kamal Franklin. Remember, like, donate, spread the word, give the good word. We here for you. The chat is already up to 287 and going farther up. My understanding is that we have a guest at 9 o'clock.
We does.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all want to get into some news?
Yeah, I have,
Yes, and good Lord.
I have a story. 'Cause
Cool. I'm not going to do that whole intro thing again because we just did that. You just doing the Baltimore City regains control stories?
Yeah,
All
well,
right, I'll put it up.
I just, I figured that you were going to spend a lot of time talking about Trump and what's going on today. Well, because, it's been abrupt and chaotic, barefaced imperialism. And also, I think people are kind of deeming these certain things as distractions and not understanding it, I guess, in centralization that's forming across sectors and existing powers. So it's noteworthy to point it out. So we should discuss Trump, but we should also discuss some things locally that has been occurring. So I've been on here several times, mockingly kind of saying, just to raise that Baltimore City has no control over their police department, and the state has, they have argued that they don't have control either. So we have not known since November 2022 when question H was voted on, I think over 80% for Baltimore City to regain control after 160 years. So it was passed and then nothing happened. And so this came a question again on the ballot and it actually passed. So Baltimore Beat, which I encourage everyone to subscribe to. A dear comrade of mine, Lisa, she used to work for Jackie, Lisa. Is the founder of Baltimore Beat. So this is a completely independent news outlet in Baltimore. And it goes on to say, after a decade-long campaign, Baltimore is one step closer to true accountability for its police force. Residents say that the Baltimore Police Department has long used the shield of the state control to act with impunity in the communities it's sworn to serve and protect. So this is for the second time in 2 years, voters decisively approved a measure to return the Baltimore Police Department to city control, this time with 77% of the vote. This was question E, marked the end of 160 years of the Baltimore Police Department operating as a state agency. It goes on to say that elected leaders now face the challenge of transforming the police force. So essentially what this means is now that it is back in the hands of the city, the mayor and the city council can now do more than just approve or deny a budget, but actually set the budget and what that all entails. So this also raises the question of, a closer engagement with city council, because now all of these questions are now in their hands. And then what does this mean when city council is also within the last 2 years made the proposal for Cop City? So we can close that out, because I did want to speak a little more in terms of like what does this mean for organizing in Baltimore City, because ultimately Baltimore City is still a completely militarized city. It has access to the 1033 program that we talked about, which allots for federal agencies for military grade weapons and armored vehicles, local police departments to have access to that through a federal Department of Defense budget. And this also includes Morgan State and Coppin State. But then there's a deadly exchange program. There is Operation Relentless Pursuit, which was passed federally under Trump and Barr in 2020, in fact, so on his way out. So all of these things are, and then ICE, then there's a John Hopkins private security force. So all of these things are still existing in Baltimore City. And in 2017, I believe you and Kim recently talked about consent decrees. In 2017, Baltimore City got a consent decree where the State Department and basically said, and with the Attorney General, that, this is violations of the First, Second, Third, Fourth, and Fifth Amendment.
Every amendment.
But since it has been more funding towards like federal alternatives, like Operation Relentless Pursuit, more funding, as the Department of Defense increases, so does the 1033 budget and access to that. So what does this all mean now that the state itself, it does not have control? And I think this is really the question for organizers today, especially for those of us who push the concept of community control over policing, right? Because I think this puts us in a position of being one step closer. Because ultimately, when you have 2 years ago, you see an overwhelming vote of over 80%. And then you see still, it's not 80%, but it's still high. It's over half the voting population who, engaged in that process, declared that some form of self-determination, right? Even if it is in the hands of the city. So what does it mean now to kind of push that? And I think that ultimately is where we are and landing and heightening of these contradictions. So as we are seeing this, and it should be taken on as a victory, I think what we want to discuss and we'll be discussing at the next town hall, which is about the sort of internal colonization of Baltimore and Maryland more broadly, and just getting more into the question of what does it even mean to be domestically colonized and how are we understanding that, especially in terms of being over policed and occupied in our communities. I think this victory allows us to expand on the question, okay, so now what do we do?
It was interesting to me, like as most people who obviously outside looking in, the mere fact that the city police was controlled by a state or considered a state agency, it's highly unusual and obviously speaks to like larger mechanisms of control over what happens in terms of local policing. So that was interesting in its face, the fact that this struggle even had to be waged. And like you said, even after it's waged and it's back in the hands, let's say, of a locality, the fact that most of these localities are geared towards supporting the development class and using the police to implement through physical measures the ideas of gentrification, of control, over our communities and so forth. So, but I agree, at the very least, it brings the struggle more local to where some good organizing can attempt to get some reforms, and the placement and idea of what the police are still holds true around there being a force of property control and supporting or protecting private property over people's lives. The ability to mass arrests in communities, to present fake evidence and get people jail time. So the whole system works to support the control of our communities. And so, I think there's always, as part of this major discussion, I think that's happening, particularly in organizing worlds, or it has been happening over the last few years around ideas of abolishment and what that looks like, as opposed to community control and what that looks like. And I think all those things are open to examination and attempts to get people to even start looking at the police as an occupying force, as opposed to somebody who you call immediately when something goes wrong. But again, I think that's also incumbent upon sort of our organizing, our organizations or whatever, our radical organizations, to present alternatives that people feel like they can live with, right? Or that makes sense to them, or they can see, which is not easy, but it is one of the things that we have to accomplish.
Yeah, and the utility of the kind of work that we do, particularly that Baltimore does in focusing on the state relationship with local law enforcement and how those lines were blurred or just erased completely by, in Maryland, and what that has meant for the people in Maryland. I think that was critical for people to understand why the police in Baltimore operate the way they do. And one of the ways that people are colonized. So then when people were able to understand that this is part of the reason you, as people of a city that is supposed to have a mayor and a mayor's office and a government that has a control over its institutions, which means allegedly or ostensibly the people have input into how those institutions operate. But then for people to find out, wait a minute, the people we vote for who run Baltimore don't control the police, then this is a problem. That is the futility. That is the use of the kind of political education we do. Because had we not made those connections for people would have still been not like, well, we need the police because look at the way Baltimore looks. And in raising the issue of that relationship, we are also able to raise the issue of capitalism, gentrification, the colonial nature of poor people in Baltimore, and why their neighborhoods look like this, and why the Baltimore City Council and the Baltimore mayor have done nothing to address any of these things. That is the utility of political education in these kinds of campaigns, because it's the political education that results in changes like this being made.
Did you all have another story?
Yes, this whole Lord have mercy. And I'm saying Lord have mercy not because not because I'm shocked at what Trump is doing. I just think it's weird that people are responding the way they are, and the conversations are not anywhere close to the conversations that we need to be having in this moment. Because this issue, I keep telling people, this whole thing is not really about Trump. This ought to be about the lies of checks and balances, and we have systems in which things that shouldn't be happening don't happen, and how are these things kind of just happening without any real resistance? I am very confused about why that is not a part of the conversation. But we've got Democrat politicians like this guy who is going on the news saying the public needs to rise up to fight this constitutional crisis that Trump has created, says a Democratic senator. Why aren't you fighting? So this guy, this is Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut. And he was speaking during a Senate Democrat policy luncheon news conference. Hold on. Wait, now we're supposed to be in the middle of a constitutional crisis, and the Democrats in the Senate are having policy luncheons still? They're having policy luncheons. So cute. The Republican majority in Congress is largely standing by as President Trump and his allies attempt to expand the power of the presidency. So how should Democrats respond? NPR is asking ridiculously. The party is grappling with that question now as Trump and his close advisor Elon Musk enact dramatic changes, and the administration continues to back controversial picks for key cabinet positions. In the first weeks of his second term, Trump and his acting leadership at the Office of Management and Budget tried to freeze spending that Congress had already appropriated, prompting multiple lawsuits. All of what Trump is doing right now is actually in court right now, as several lawsuits have been filed, even regarding the creation of this DOGE agency that's being adjudicated right now. So an entity that is literally right now presently being sued over its very existence and authority. It is acting on authority that it doesn't really have, and that the courts haven't even ruled. See, this is a mess. So on X, Musk also boasted that he has effectively shuttered the U.S. Agency for International Development. There's a whole lot of conversation about that. That's very weird right now. Those are just some of the administration's recent actions, raising questions about the actual scope of presidential authority as laid out in the Constitution. Trump has maintained that he's acting in accordance with the law, but Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut, strongly disagrees. He told Morning Edition, the president and his allies' moves represent, quote, illegal seizures of power, end quote, that have thrown the U.S. into a constitutional crisis. He said he's unwilling to vote for any of Trump's nominees and warns that the public may not rise up if they see Democrats regularly collaborating with the Republicans. He's not saying that he won't collaborate with the Republicans. He's saying that the Democrats should not be seen to collaborate with the Republicans, but they're doing it because they voted in favor of a bunch of these psycho nominations. But he said that his colleagues across the aisle shouldn't sit on their hands either. The focus has to be on Republicans right now. And why they have been completely and utterly silenced. I do not want all of the pressure to be on Democrats to figure this out when Republicans should care just as much about democracy as Democrats do. This is the issue with this situation. Here is the person who is in the party who just campaigned on you have to vote for us, even though we're not going to do anything for you. We're not going to change any of the policies that are still around from the previous Trump administration. We're not going to change anything that you hate about the Biden administration that we have been doing, but you have to vote for us because that other guy is evil. He's a fascist. Do you want fascism? No, you don't want fascism. So vote for us. And now that the fascist is in power, then now they're like, what? We can't do anything. We're not going to do anything about the fascists. Not going to do anything. You have to do something about the fascists.
Well, there was no opposition to Marco Rubio's appointment, like zero. It was like overwhelmingly every single person allowed for that. So just want to note. But when I'm seeing the picture, I was like, is that Chris Murphy? Because Chris Murphy just went viral for a recent tweet where he says in the first week, Trump removed 7,300 people. On average, Biden was removing 15,000 a week. Under Biden, 72% of ICE arrests were criminals. Under Trump, it's dropped to around 50%. Trump is removing less people and less criminals. These guys are terrible at everything. And that's the same Chris Murphy? That's what you're telling me? That's the same one? Oh,
yep.
Because this is what, for me, I was just having a conversation with a comrade yesterday. Well, in the middle of the night, honestly, I don't get no sleep. But even in the sense of like the panic, like just in general, like how are we explaining things or certain things to people who are seeing all of this occur rapidly, chaotically, and they can't make sense of it other than how it's going to affect them, because all of these things are not going to have an effect or a ripple effect. Obviously, you don't, even if it doesn't go through, one cannot just shake up like the government and it has no effect, right? So that acknowledging that is what it is, but then also to the point of the emphasis on the duopoly is not a dismissal of the capabilities of this administration, or rather this new regime. It's not saying that these things aren't dangerous or won't reach a critical level or anything. What it is highlighting, or at least trying to strategically point to the ways of the complicity, because to the point of Chris Murphy making these grandstands, and I believe multiple congressmen, I think I heard Elizabeth Warren this morning on Morning Joe making coffee. Alexandria Cortez is back outside, but there's a level of duplicity and complicity that the Democratic Party engages in that has landed us right here, right? To the point of, if we are supposed to be outraged about the release of these Homeland Security and these ICE forces so rapidly rounding people up, then how does Chris Murphy get to make that statement in a mocking way and not get challenged? Or how does he then get to say that and then get to purport himself as the opposition to any of this? That is the clear complicity. And I think that is why we need to understand the role of the duopoly, because there's a bottom line. They aren't going to shake it up too much, right? Because the objective remains the same. And if they were to highlight these particular contradictions, it points back to them, right? And their duplicity and complicity in all of this, right? And there's certain laws that they are okay with, even to the point of the Guantanamo Bay.
Yep.
Even to the point of Guantanamo Bay, right? So there's no real opposition. And I remember this was the same thing that happened during the first run of this administration, when the mother of all bombs was dropped in Syria.
That's right.
And it was just, the issue primarily was, well, he should have, at least told us. But there was no opposition to the mother of all bombs being dropped in Syria.
Right.
And that's primarily the function of highlighting the duopoly. Not to say that this is not a serious or dangerous situation, or this is one that we should be taking lightly or not organized around, but we're organizing around all of it, because you cannot just remove one aspect of it and then think that things are going to just smooth out. We've seen what it is under these Democratic parties, right? And it's because it's so covert, because there's the implementation of soft power, and not direct military, right? What we're up against right now is a sort of bold, open face fascism. And that is what's frightening, because that's happening in a rapid speed. But I do think that a party that was fear mongering about a Project 2025 for at least 2 years, to have nothing prepared to fight for any aspect of it, really speaks and says a lot about the uselessness rather of the Democratic Party.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think in some ways he's actually right. It is up to the people because it's not going to
They gonna do
be.
nothing.
Yeah, it's not like no one. And I think, yeah, again, they want people to think that if you vote them back into power, that somehow you fixed the problem when you haven't fixed the problem. You're just playing ping pong on a sort of a corrupt table. So I completely agree with that. But and obviously I think Trump is displaying overt uses of power, which are extremely dangerous and chaotic and destabilizing. One thing that we may not have mentioned, but definitely should, is like even these layoffs at the government level are targeted towards Black people. Black people are overrepresented, particularly Black women, in terms of hiring at the federal level because the private sector hires so few Black people, right? So when you think about who they're targeting for a lot of this firing or laying off or reducing a government, even that's targeted towards Black folks. So we have to understand also that Trump, and I clearly think we do. Trump is by no means not doing things that his constituency, he believes, wants him to do and is directing him to do. And like you said, the Democrats are not an opposition party. They're not walking out of Congress. They're not having rallies and demonstrations and telling us that we have to stop everything that we're doing to fight against fascism, as they told us in the primary and in the general election. What happened? As soon as Trump was elected, Biden welcomed them to the White House.
Yeah.
Most of them showed up at the inauguration
Yes,
and
they did.
sat in their proper seats.
Mhm.
And even now, when all of Trump's appointees are coming up for votes, overwhelmingly Democrats are giving them the okay, not even voting for these nominees, not even showing that if you're going to be an opposition party, at the very least what you do, and I again, this is a weird part where I don't disagree, you at least publicly show that you're the opposition by having all of your members vote against whatever Trump nominee goes up there to say that I'm not complicit. I'm not a part of this. I'm against this. You can continually vote as a block to say that you are in opposition to it. At the very least, you do that if you're trying to convince people or that you're different. But what they're trying to convince people, and what they're doing in their private meetings by the people who they've now elected to lead up the Democratic leadership, not the leadership council, I guess the Democratic Party, is that, again, they voted in these moderates who are going to lead the party to a moderate point of view and lead the party to trying to pick off Trump voters to win election again. And to be clear, Trump is not a new manifestation of America. I think even if the Democrats were full on liberal and or progressive and or even radical, in an election in the United States, they could still and probably would still lose, because I'm not convinced that the white working class will do anything when it comes to voting in their class interest, but has shown themselves continually and historically to do most things to protect their racial hierarchy in this country. This is a white nationalist country founded on white nationalism, founded on white supremacy. And so I don't think the manifestation of Trump is a renewal of overt white nationalism, but it's not something that only if the Democrats were more radical or left, that would prevent the victory of a Trump-like figure. I think the country is like this, which is why my nationalism has always been that we as Black folks can't depend on white America to do anything outside of the purview of what it's shown us that it will do. That there may be people who are representing critical mass of a white left that could help in terms of fighting back against fascism, overt racism, and white supremacy. But this country is a white nationalist country. And having Trump in office and demonstrates that white nationalism in a way that's always been there, without, again, the Democrats and their sort of like, smoke and mirrors approach to how to install or to further white nationalism. Trump is a clear-cut vision, and dangerous is in he pushes it further than what it might have been done prior or whatever. Like the tip of the spear argument, what they do is that they push these things much further. When the Democrats come in, they've now they just basically shore that all up, right? They don't do anything to change it. They're like, okay, we've shored this on up and we'll keep this going. Biden did not take away the tariffs on China when he came in office. Biden did not pursue a different policy. In fact, went further than Trump in terms of supporting the genocide that happened in Gaza, right? So all that stuff leads to this Democratic Party is nothing but smoke and mirrors, and is a very dangerous party. And the Republicans are just as dangerous as the Democrats because they are part of the duopoly, which is here for the white nationalism, white control, and Western hegemony.
And I see, people saying, y'all only talk about the Democrats. Are we still having that argument in 2025? Because I just did a show Friday on the policies, the immigration policies from Bill Clinton that Trump is using to carry out his immigration issued policies now, his immigration executive orders, the lightning speed with which those ICE agents hopped in those vehicles before that executive order before the ink was dry. How could he have done that fast, that easily, if there wasn't already a foundation that had already been used by both parties to do the exact same thing, except when the Democrats did it, they didn't announce it. It wasn't like a big old three-ring circus kind of, hey, the media blitz kind of thing. But ICE raids were happening under Biden. Biden was not going to oppose a plan to send Haitian immigrants to Guantanamo. This was under Biden. The legislative foundation for the way things are done, the lack of judicial rights, the lack of legal rights, the reduction of legal rights, calling all of the people who migrate here, calling them all criminals, saying that, oh, we're only deporting people who've committed crimes. All of that stuff comes from legislation that Bill Clinton signed. This was after Reagan's amnesty program that Republicans would hate today. So these things that are being done by the Trump administration, my argument is that the foundation for these things to be done were laid by Democrats, and they have actually been used. The legislative foundation for these things have been used by Democrats to do the exact same things, only not as outwardly mean-spirited, right? They didn't come out and make the announcements about doing these things that Trump did, but they absolutely did some of these things. Mm-hmm. And we talk about the Democrats in this context to explain the duopoly, to explain that this is why this problem is not just this Republican administration or this Republican politician or this Republican plan from the Heritage Foundation. How is all of this a Republican problem if we show you that Democrats have indeed done the same things? And what does that mean if you've got the party that's supposed to be the opposition to the fascists doing the same things as the fascists, but telling you they're not, and you keep voting for them? What does that mean? That's why we talk about the Democrats. I don't know how better to explain that.
Well, Jackie, you had a really good show on Friday. But one thing I think is important, because I listened to it on Citations Needed. I also really appreciate that podcast because they do critical media analysis. But they mention the use of bipartisanship and how that even came about. And that is something that Clinton brought to the forefront, the idea of bipartisanship. And because of that is how, we got NAFTA and the Telecommunications Act, and this sort of reach across the aisle and meet in the middle. And the use of that shifted the party continuously to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right. So it is a center-right party at this point. I mean, there is no centrist. There surely is no left. But it is, to your point, these kind of foundations that were laid, even rhetorically, policy-wise, the collapsing of the Telecommunications Act, where the narrative itself gets funneled to us in a particular way, which is why we only hear certain aspects and not any kind of opposition or real true opposition as we would have before, like C-SPAN, or the use of what C-SPAN used to be. The fact that you can see those struggles and debates happen in real time around these policies and ideological struggles and things like that pertaining to the country. None of that exists. And the other point that you were making, Kamal, so I remember when Trump first was in office, and what was it, Milo and Richard Spencer and all of these whites, when folks were still punching Nazis in the street. Yeah, back in those days. Yeah, but I think there was something that was written in terms of the kind of centralization that was forming around the Trump campaign, that was highlighting the way folks have been made to understand, and again, through the media apparatus, the Trump voter, right? There's this idea that the average Trump voter is the white working class when it has been the white bourgeoisie. So when we see even the capitulation now with the Musk and all of them, there's a particular class of whites that have been trying to uphold that sort of white nationalist tendency, that have been the driving force behind these campaigns, and even strumming up a white working class base, even to the point of how we're seeing them organize town halls and running to city councils and things like that. The way that those things have been funded have been through the white bourgeois class, or the ruling class. So there are, and then when we see the exposés on Clarence Thomas' wife, and so there is a pipeline or a mechanism that they have been able to kind of create. And I don't want to say by the first administration it's something that popped up, or through the Tea Party. I would have to go back and kind of look deeper into the origins of that. But I do remember them touching on, when you look at who has kind of been the driving force behind MAGA, potentially, specifically, it has been the middle to upper. And even
I disagree with that. I think it's been both. It's been all, but the driving force behind the Trump phenomena comes out of the Great Recession and Obama winning and the advent of the Tea Party. And the Tea Party was definitely a revolt at the lower level of white society that was endorsed by upper level whites who saw another mechanism. Remember, I'm going to forget this guy's name on the CNBC, who talked about how there needs to be a second American Revolution and Tea Party, and the money going from the banks and so forth. So you can't look at any voting track of the percentages of votes that Trump got and not see an overrepresentation of working class and poor whites who are voting in large numbers for Trump. And the only time it did not happen was when Biden ran, but still Trump got the majority of the white vote, both working class whites and upper crust whites. So of course, it's always the white elites that will take advantage of the situation. But I don't think that to say that white working class have not been supporting Trump.
Oh, no.
The white working class has continually supported right-wing. Again, the only Democrat to win the majority of the white vote in the last 50 years has been Bill Clinton, a Southern white boy who went mad conservative to get those whites to get those white votes, right? And the sort of taking over from the liberal aspects of the Democratic Party. And who is the Democratic Party except the Southern segregationists who decided to move from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party when they thought Kennedy and Johnson were being too soft on race and allowing these civil rights measures to come in to play and to give these black folks some rights. So all that white working class, particularly from the South, the slow migration of Northern whites and Midwestern whites over to the Republican Party, their base used to be the Democratic Party. And so when I say those things, for me, it's about understanding also that, again, there's things about the Trump administration which I think are unique and very, very dangerous, which have to be explicitly spoken about, not only in reaction to how the Democrats are also complicit, but also in reaction to how the history of America plays itself out and how white nationalism is a force of white America, and that Trump is fully, overtly, not only here in the United States, but across the world with Musk and others, linking up white nationalism for an overt resurgence, right? And so as we talk about capitalism is dying or the American empire is dying, in their mind, they're figuring out different ways to reconquer, reconstitute. In some ways, people talk about being sovereign, which is what they claim that the ideological perspectives is of Trump, of like not trusting any of these multinational organizations or institutions, but really want the United States to go in and do what they want to do when they want to do it without anybody holding them back. And I do think that's part of what Trump's overt attempt is to do. And so I think the things around, again, it's not so much that the Democrats haven't done some of these things, but I do think the sort of tip of the spear approaches that Trump is taking, again, represents a furtherance and outward realignment of how white nationalism works and how that is extremely dangerous. And again, for me, I don't think whether the Democrats were progressive or not would have made the hugest difference in the world in slowing down this backlash, this sort of like second backlash or third backlash, depending on what theories you read or whatever, around what's considered any sort of new rights for Black people or Reconstruction or rights for others. What's happened in this country constantly has been a white backlash to that and the feeling of taking over. And I think, again, the economic crisis, the destabilization or deindustrialization, the numbers that suggest that whites are becoming the minorities, all those things I think are huge in terms of this resurgence of overt white nationalism, which we've seen before and before. And the question is how we deal with it as organizers and so forth. So
yeah, well, I meant to suggest that they were like AstroTurf, not that they weren't, that white workers or the white working class aren't a part of it or a major part of it, right? Because they're the mass base, but that the project itself, even to the point of Tea Party, hasn't necessarily been directed by this class of people.
And this is always it's always an interesting experience being in these conversations about the rise of fascism in the United States in general since the first Trump campaign, because we've had these conversations before that, like, yeah, I think that now what we're looking at with this particular Trump administration is this is what white nationalist revenge looks like, right? I've been kind of thinking that, as I agree with you, Kamau, this Trump administration is like the modern representation of like literally the character and the nature of America. Like, I really do think that the way Trump is doing things now, if people have ever wondered how any of the horrible things that have happened to non-European descended people in this country, the entire history of this country, if people have really wondered how so many people who claim they love freedom could allow these awful things to happen, the genocides, the Red Summer, the lynchings, and all of the bombing schools and churches and all the kind. How could it happen? You're looking at it. You're looking that Trump, this administration of Trump is America. It is how America handles its disputes. It's what America does when America feels like somebody has insulted it, and America's response is, I am going to destroy you. Right. So I'm looking at the first Trump administration as like when the Republicans tried their compassionate conservatism bullshit under Bush. And it's like, well, yes, we want to deny rights to everybody who doesn't look like us, but we'll do it in a nice way. We'll kind of be slow about it. We're okay. We're gonna give some money to churches, and we're still gonna take away social, funds from social safety net programs and give more money to the military and criminalize people. But we are gonna give some money to your church so they can start a daycare for you, right? That kind of thing. For me, that was the first Trump administration. And then after the Democrats came in and did not overturn any of Trump's bad policies, not a one, as far as I can remember, kept doing the same thing Trump did while claiming, see, look at the terror you avoided by electing Biden, by electing us, the Democrats. Don't change anything that Trump put in place. Just basically the whole 4 years, it was about Trump terror in Russia, Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia. And now when Trump wins again, he uses the power he has now to go after the people who said and did bad things about him. He is the nature of Americanism. That's what it is. And I don't think we can have a conversation as accurate as what you said about this administration and some of the things that Trump is doing and how they're doing them. Yeah, it's dangerous. It's very scary. I don't think we can have that conversation without also talking about how we got here. Because Trump didn't just wake up, just like Putin didn't wake up that day in 2022 and be like, fuck it, I'm going to send the military into Ukraine. Trump didn't just wake up and walk into the White House and was just like, hey, thanks. That's not how he came to power. Democrats helped.
And before we go I know we got to break real quick. I'm gonna take a quick second to do one of the things that I always say not to do about going in the chat. So I just I don't know who this
Get out of it.
I stay out of it too usually, but it's like a course correction. It says, didn't you hear poor white people control the country, not the interests of global capitalism? And I don't know who this person is, and so I'm not going to call them the idiot that I think they are.
Sure.
But who said that white people control the country? White people have been the foot soldiers continually and ongoingly to help support the capitalist interests, and the capitalist interests could not have done what they've done without the continued support. Whether or not you think that support is it's because the capitalists make the whites think certain ways, just like in modern times, the white capitalist interests couldn't get as far as they're going without black bourgeois support controlling larger black communities. Also, you can think that also, but the idea that somehow the white working class has not been, for the most part, a regressive class of people in this country, which have kept white supremacy alive because they've done their job on the ground of committing lynchings, forming clans, helping to be the foot soldiers for white supremacy and global capitalism, because they think they have a place in global capitalism that, again, may not be the capitalist class. They may aspire to be such, but the standard of living that they think that they enjoy, which is above black folks, has been the ideological grounding of what's kept this country going. So it's just not about who controls. It's about who allows themselves, or who is controlled, and what they've done in terms of keeping this right-wing regressive country going through their white nationalism and white supremacist ideas. And there's some people who actually believe that there is no such thing as a white working class, that the whites who came to America in the first place were the middle class whites who could afford to get on the ships for the most part, and who came and got free land and everything else. So some historians can even dispute the idea that there really is a white working class to even think about like going towards or or organizing to be on the same side as Black people or other people who are suffering from racial oppression and capitalist oppression here in the country. So just a quick, counter to what I consider to be a stupid argument. Now, somebody who's not giving stupid arguments, let's bring up the Air Doctor.
Ooh, look at Kamal. He is jumping out of the ring into the into the chat room.
You couldn't find no Black wrestlers for Black wrestlers.
I mean, they not too much different in complexion to come out. But yo, let's go ahead and take a quick break. Y'all bringing the ruckus like Wu-Tang. I heard we got a new member coming in after this break, so let's go ahead and get to it right here on the Remix Morning Show. Let's go. Remix on the remix, y'all.
And I'm going real far. Going off to Hollywood to be a big star. There's nothing here for me, so I gotta move fast. And I'm getting on the road and won't never look back. Yeah, I gotta dream big. Cause when it happens, it's gon' happen real quick. Yes, I feel it. I gotta move fast. Cause when it happens, I can let it go fast.
All right, let me take you to a time and place. Let me take you back to 1988 with Big Daddy Kane off the album Long Live the Kane. And the name of that song is Raw. Mixed with a little bit of 2008, which is Jasmine Sullivan off her album Fearless. The name of that song is Dream Big. And I hope y'all also dreaming big and making it happen. Make sure y'all hit that like button while you're doing it. Subscribe. Also, go to patreon.com, become a member over there, get footage that's rare. And what you can do is you can go to blkliberationmedia.org and you can donate right there and keep this train going. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and get back to our crew right here on the Remix Morning Show. You know how we do.
Where do I see them?
I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming.
All right. Quick remix on the remix. And that's what it is. A little bit of Big Daddy Kane and Jasmine. All right. I'll catch y'all next break.
Nice. Yes. You're muted. You're muted.
I'm just saying we're going to do the whole thing and bring up the guests.
Yes, do the whole thing. Bring up the guests.
Air Doctor, do that whole thing you do.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Remix Morning Show. I'm Jackie Lukman. That guy over there is Kamal Franklin. That young lady down there is Erica Keynes. And as you can see, we have a guest, Ajamu Baraka. I was about to call you the title that you're still the chair of the coordinating committee for the Black Alliance for Peace and also the convener of the North-South Project for People-Centered Human Rights. Ajamu, thank you so much for joining us. And we're in the middle of this very, very serious discussion about the current political moment we are in. And so you came in at just the right moment because I am curious about your perspective on this political moment. What do you think it portends? What does it represent? What are your thoughts on not just this administration of Trump and this 2 weeks of chaos, but particularly how have you responded to how people have responded to it?
First, let me thank you all for allowing me to come back on again, and I'm glad to see Brother Kamal here. And I heard him laying out some very important elements that we need to take into account when we look at this current moment. In terms of what's been happening these last couple of weeks, for me, I wouldn't even classify it as chaos. Basically, this administration came in with a plan. And the plan was to avoid some of the issues that they faced the first time, which was the inability to, in fact, govern the way he wanted to govern. I don't think really he had a very solid plan in terms of governance, but it was quite clear that powerful elements of the bourgeoisie were not going to allow him to, in fact, govern outside of their set of interests. And they made that quite clear in terms of from the very beginning when they infiltrated his campaign, when they indicted his national security advisor, Michael Flynn, and when they pulled that raggedy sort of J. Edgar Hoover move on Trump when they met with him in the White House and they laid out stuff. And then the plan was that James Comey would lay back, and do his Hoover thing with Trump and let him know, hey, we got this information on you, but hey, we want to work with you. I'm your boy, et cetera, et cetera. And Trump said at that moment he knew he was going to fire him because you're dealing with a different kind of element. I mean, you don't engage in the real estate business in New York if you don't have mafia characteristics. And James Comey came to say that dealing with Trump was like dealing with a mafia don. Okay, so they came at this time understanding that if you're going to try to govern, then you've got to shift away layers of the deep state, and so they've gone after the bureaucracy, including the intelligence agencies. And basically they are involved in what is almost like a mini revolution, if you will. The kind of stuff that we would do if we seize power. Basically, you have to bring the bureaucracy under control. You got to root out those elements of the deep state. If you have any chance of moving your process forward. And they are in fact involved in the revolution in the sense that, Kamal's laying out how in the past mistakes have been made by folks who prematurely declared the crisis of capital being such where it was not going to be able to overcome. But we have seen that it's been able to reconstitute itself in various forms. The 1930s, and the 1970s, and with the 1970s, of course, being the introduction of the period that we're in now, which is the neoliberal period. But they have been able to reconstitute themselves to maintain their class rule. Unfortunately, though, they have run out of options in terms of reforms that would maintain the illusion of liberal democracy. The form that now they are embracing, and this is a form that we're seeing reflected in the convergence politics that connect both the Democrat and the Republican Party. That is the reform of fascism. People have to understand fascism is a class politics. Okay, I think we get corrupted with too many of these bad Hitler movies and all of this, where people reduce fascism down to behaviorism,
Right.
And looking for the same kind of elements and configurations that we saw in Italy and in Germany, and trying to then do this reasoning by analogy. If you didn't find those different factors, then you claim that the U.S. wasn't fascist. But the U.S. has been fascist from the very beginning. The whole colonial process is a fascist. Okay, so the reform that they are involved in now is in fact a fascist reform, just taking various iterations. So yes, it's a very dangerous moment, but it was predictable. When we laid out the rationale for the Black Alliance for Peace, we laid this out in 2017. We said that the trajectory of politics in the U.S., one in which more intensive repression was inevitable, that the contradictions of the neoliberal order could not be overcome, that the decline of the U.S. process, the U.S. state, and the collective and the program of the collective West was irreversible. Okay, and so we had a responsibility to get ourselves prepared for the war they were already waging on us, so that it wouldn't remain a one-sided conflict. So when you are guided by a materialist analysis, a materialist framework, then you don't find yourself getting confused or freaked out by the moves being made by the enemy. So this is where we are today, folks, and it's a very interesting time. I'm excited. In fact, I'm giddy in terms of the real possibilities we have. Is something is dangerous, of course, no question about that. Because we see RICO cases and Uhuru 3 just escaped going to prison, et cetera, et cetera. But we had to put that stuff in context too, because we organize in the Americas region, we organize around the world, and we're in contact with working with folks who are facing situations like that and more intense. And that's what helps keeps us grounded and serious about what we're trying to do. It's going to get like that, folks. And that's what being a revolutionary is all about.
John, can I ask you real quick then, where do you see because you said you're optimistic in some ways, or excited about the period. Some ways I feel the same. So, but where do you see the openings? Where do you see the opportunities for either collaboration or not just in the United States, but worldwide? I think there's some obvious ones or whatever, but where do you see the openings that give you some optimism that at the same time that this, like you said, this empire is reconstituting itself, some of its moves are also causing friction and openings around the world, not just for people who are going to be overtly committed allies to us, but people who are also trying to protect empires. They see it, and so they see Trump as a destructive force about that, which again creates more openings. So where do you see things playing out, like China versus the United States and stuff like that? So on the world stage and here domestically, where do you see openings, or what gives you cause for sort of optimism during a time period where this type of fascism is becoming sort of omnipresent in our lives? It's a sort of daily thing.
I say two elements. One is that as you reference, what is unfolding in the so-called global South, or as we used to be called, the third world, and that is that there's been a stripping away of the last elements of the illusions that the Western world had any real interest in seeing the rest of the world develop. That the parasitic relationships have been exposed in ways that they can never be covered up again. What that has done is that it has deepened the seriousness of the politics that people are pursuing in the global South. That people are quite clear that if they are going to be able to survive, then they have to intensify their internal national and class struggles, and that in fact is happening. They understand that coloniality is real, and that's something that was born out of academia. That the colonial relationships continue, and that the neo-colonial leaderships they find in these various countries, they now are representing a principal aspect of the primary contradiction. That they understand they can't get to the primary contradiction, which is the global capitalist order, without dealing with their internal class enemy, the dominant class within their states. In the U.S., on the other hand, a similar kind of awakening, I think, is happening. Now, unfortunately for us in the U.S., we're going to have to go through a process that's going to be more dangerous than in the global South, because as the liberation struggles, the class struggles will result in more and more territories being liberated. Those class forces in those territories are going to be fleeing, and where are they going?
Florida.
Coming to the last bastion,
right into Miami.
Miami, across the country. I mean, you got Ukrainians all over the U.S. now, for example. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're coming to the West. They're going to be coming to the U.S. And so the last elements of this global struggle against capitalist hegemony would take place, unfortunately, in the Western world, and specifically in the U.S. And so it makes the situation for us very, very precarious. And that's why we've got to get more serious about preparing ourselves structurally We've got to organize ourselves more effectively. So, Brother Kamal, there are openings that if we were at a different, a higher level of organization, we
Right.
could advance our forces. Right now, we can't take advantage of the objective contradictions because subjectively we are so incredibly weak in terms of consciousness and organization. But with the new role of the oligarchy that's come out of the background, and now because they're so young, they don't have anything else to do. They want to be in governance and all of that. Is stripping away the the veneer of liberal democracy, and they straight up now saying we are relying on force and violence to maintain ourselves
Right.
and to advance ourselves. And so that is helping again to undermine the consciousness that has been the false consciousness that's been instilled in so many people in this country, believing that they can make certain kind of advancements and changes just through liberal democratic processes. They're now beginning to see that we're in a real war. That's a good thing.
So, John,
Go ahead.
I wanted to switch gears a bit. Just I wanted to raise just the recent tweets from El Salvador, because it was something that you were saying in terms of what we have to prepare ourselves for. Obviously, as we are reaching the final stage, it does get more intense, more dangerous. But one of the things that I thought was interesting in terms of the deal, what is the supposed bilateral deal between El Salvador and the U.S. to outsource U.S. prisoners into El Salvador, was just this concept of prison imperialism. And I was just wondering, even as you were talking about the rightist forces traveling into the U.S., if they get, as more liberated zones occur across the global South, I'm just wondering, what are you thinking about this sort of capitulation between rightist forces, not just in the U.S., but within the global South?
Well, I would say that first, I don't really see it as capitulation. I see it as open class collaboration.
Okay.
In that, for example, in that very important situation you just shared with the listeners, this is a El Salvador is a rightist government that wants to remain in good graces with the U.S. And so there's common interest there, but they're also being paid. This wasn't something we say, hey, just send them over here. We'll take them. No, there's big money involved in this. Okay. So there is a commercial element to that relationship also. And we're going to see, unfortunately, more of that. As we all know, the Trump administration is now getting 30,000 spaces ready at Guantanamo because they recognize that some of the folks who are now incarcerated, who will be incarcerated as part of the reign of terror across the U.S. in terms of deportations, that they're not going to be able to send all those people back to these various countries. And so they're going to send them to Guantanamo. So, so this situation with incarceration and this term prison imperialism is real. It's people have to understand that even with the prisons, for example, across the global South, those prisons were constructed by U.S. corporations with models that were developed in the U.S. And that is part of the apparatus that they've been utilizing throughout the colonial period, and that will continue. So these are all the different elements that we've got to make people aware of that we have to deal with. We talk about overthrowing the colonial system. We have to be aware of all of the mechanisms, all of the institutions that have to be targeted in that process.
So you were talking about the issues that are being raised, the contradictions that are being exposed, that we can no longer cover it up. And I do agree that after this Trump administration, if people are not clear on the true nature of America. I'm not sure what else we can do to make that clear to them, because I do think it is being exposed, primarily that clearly everything that the mythology about this country we thought it was. I think it's all being laid bare, that it's all a lie now. At least I hope it is. And I think in one of those areas, in a really weird way, is Trump's pivot now on the situation with Gaza, because people came into this Trump administration, begrudgingly giving him credit for actually facilitating the ceasefire that the Biden administration seemed to have no power to facilitate for more than a year. And now we have Trump making the announcements that he has made about what he wants to see with Gaza, which raises some other issues that I guess people hadn't really paid attention to. He basically admitted the number of people who have potentially been massacred, not 30 or 40,000 as has been reported by the media, but close to 1 million. So what does the Trump administration position toward Gaza now signal for how we regard international solidarity in this era where he does things that people mistake as altruistic or good or something positive, and then people are given whiplash, really, when he exposes who he really is and what his intentions really were. What does that mean?
Well, I think what it means is that basically we have to understand that the Trump declaration was a continuation of U.S. policy, but in a more crude form. One of the reasons why people believe that the Biden administration was unable to so-called control Netanyahu was because there was nothing to control. That basically Netanyahu and the Biden administration were on the same page in terms of the objectives of the assault on Gaza. It was to create the conditions to make Gaza unlivable, because the intent or the objective was to take that land. There is no other way to understand that, especially when you bring in the fact that simultaneous to the assault on Gaza, you had an escalation of the military assault on the West Bank by both the military and by the settlers, both with the intent to create conditions that would facilitate ethnic cleansing. So when the Trump administration came into power, when what he said last night was in fact what the intent was. That basically they want to clear Gaza. Now the Democrats would have continued with their sort of policies that would have obscured that objective somewhat, but they would have provided the incentives and the support for that to in fact happen. So we have to keep that in mind, in my opinion. That it's not about these different personalities. It's about objective policies. Now, Trump is just more crude, and that's a good thing. Good thing for us, because sometimes that sort of mysticism that the Democrats engage in helps the Democrats to advance U.S. interests with less opposition. Trump, being the racist and crude 19th century character that he is, he just lays it out that basically the U.S. should come in and take it. We're gonna gangster it. We're gonna control it. We're gonna expel the Palestinians. We expect that the Jordanians and the Egyptians will take the population in. The Saudis will engage in a reconciliation process with Israel and normalize relations, et cetera, et cetera. All illusions, and that's good, because what happens is they is overreach. It is constant and consistent political errors. Okay, it's undermining their objective power, because none of that's going to happen. Even if you had the rightist monarchs monarchies in the so-called Middle East that secretly wanted to see a reconciliation with Israel. They couldn't do that because of their populations. Okay, the Jordanians, it would be suicide, national suicide, to bring in militants, and these are militants from Gaza into Jordan, where you have the largest concentration of Palestinians. Same thing with Egypt. It would destabilize the entire region. They understand that. And so it's not going to happen. And then for us, if they were to begin to commit U.S. troops to quote unquote stabilize the situation in Gaza, it gives us an opportunity to do a couple of things. One, to make the connection between the settler colonial project in the U.S. and Palestine, but two, to basically help to raise the level of consciousness among members of the armed forces, to let them know that you are engaged in an illegal activity. It would subject you to possible prosecution. And not only that, you are not legally or morally obligated to abide by any orders that require you to engage in illegal activity. Okay, and so it help us to raise consciousness and to raise the contradictions of our folks and others serving in the U.S. military. So, you know, these are the kind of things that we see that the enemy is involved in, that is only going to precipitate the undermining of their power. We say, hooray, keep on doing what you're doing.
Yeah, well, to that point, there is something that I did want to ask you about specifically with Ecuador. So I know we're traveling all around the world now that we have you here. But even to the point of these rightist governments that are in the global South, I know BAP and the Zone of Peace campaign more broadly has been in support of sharing the demands from the committees and organizations around the 4 boys that were murdered by the military in Ecuador. So I just wanted to know if there was an update in terms of what's happening with that. Primarily because we are seeing like an uptick in Southcom in this region, and to the point of the overwhelming support from all sides of Congress for Marco Rubio's appointment and what that actually means for the Americas, and his tour that he's on currently. I'm just wondering if you can put that into a bit of context of what exactly is occurring in the Americas and what we should be preparing ourselves for.
Preparing ourselves for and in active opposition to. Again, what they are doing in our region, and we talk about our region being the Americas, the entire Americas. They are relying on their military first strategy. And what that means concretely in terms of policies, they're strengthening the military apparatus. They are militarizing the entire Pacific coast from Panama all the way down the coast. People wonder, why did Trump start talking about Panama all of a sudden? Well, because of what is happening with the U.S. losing, to a certain extent, South America. Okay, that the number one trading party right now in the southern part of the Americas is in fact the Chinese. That they have eclipsed a U.S. Trade and investment. Okay, now with the new base, the new port that was organized, that was built in Peru, Shanghai. This is a major issue for the U.S. because it connects up Asia directly with South America, and that elevated the importance of Panama and making sure that they undermine Panama's participation in the Belt and Road Initiative that we all know about, that the Chinese have been putting in place for now about a decade. And one of the things that Marco Rubio got the Panamanians to do is to reverse themselves on participating in the Belt and Road Initiative. That became an imperative because of the new base in Peru. So This is what they're doing. And part of this process is using, again, the drug issue to militarize the region. In Ecuador, as Comrade Erica pointed out, we are working with an organization that's involved in the process of doing what we are trying to do in the U.S. again, that is to organize a national formation that can protect and advance their fundamental rights. As part of the so-called war on drugs, the Ecuadorian government has been kicking in doors and whooping ass, primarily in Black communities. Okay, well, one of the most gruesome incidents being what happened on December the 8th, the day that we left Ecuador, being in Ecuador, working with folks at a very important national conference. 4 kids were out playing soccer. Members of the Ecuadorian Air Force encountered them. They were captured, disappeared, and their remains were found a few weeks later. Now, at first, people didn't really care. And they didn't care. The Black community cared, but it wasn't even a story. When the story was first brought to the Ecuadorian president, he was like, what are you all talking about? You are trying to undermine our ability to deal with juvenile delinquency. Okay. Well, once the case started becoming an international case, and we're not going to take full credit for that, of course, but we played a significant role, I think, in helping to publicize that situation. We started tweeting out and putting out statements on that, and then it got picked up, and it became an issue. Okay, to show you the power of how to use these mechanisms, in particular the alternative media. Okay, and once it got picked up by the Guardian, and we're in close contact with the Guardian, then it became a story, and then everybody had to backtrack, and they had to have an investigation, et cetera, et cetera. They found the kids a few weeks later, signs of torture, and of course they were dead. And they tried to cover it up by burning the bodies. The update is this: the repressive situation in Ecuador is very intense. Even as they were involved in negotiations and trying to deal with compensation for the families, et cetera, et cetera. They're now involved in a very intense political situation because presidential elections are coming up. In fact, they'll be voting in a couple of days. We were supposed to go back in during this period because, according to the election laws, they basically shut down the country. You can't really move around the way you want to. So we're not going in until later. But the head of MANE, who we work with, he was involved in a conversation with the government. And the same moment he was involved in that conversation, they murdered another young Black kids. Okay, and people have to understand that when you raise these kind of issues in a narco state, like what Ecuador is, you're dealing with the military, you're dealing with the presidency, and you're dealing with the mafia. It's a very dangerous thing to be trying to defend human rights. And so they are literally putting their lives on the line, raising these issues of what's happening with the Black community, what's happening with human rights in Ecuador. But Ecuador is also key in the broader sense of the security plan that the U.S. has for the entire Pacific coast. And so I work on the zone of peace, of raising people's awareness of the bases in the Americas, demanding that those bases are closed down, attempting to reverse the militarization of the region, and bringing this and framing it in an anti-imperialist perspective. Anti-imperialist politics is also very dangerous, but it's also something that is needed for the region. People are excited about it. We just came back from Cuba a few days ago, and people are very, very excited about learning about this initiative. We're consolidating the organizational structures to push the campaign out. You might recall that when we launched it, in Haiti, Cuba, and in the U.S. And so, we are in the cutting edge of some very significant work. We're linking this to the work that we involved in on the African continent in terms of shutting down AFRICOM. All of this anti-imperialist. And then we link this back to the domestic situation here in the U.S. With the continuation of the militarization of the police forces through the Department of Defense 1033 program, the continuation of these pigs from Israel that have relationships, training relationships with domestic police forces in the U.S., and they're still there, even after this genocide. So we're going to intensify that work, that oppositional work here in 2025, and link that to the Cop City phenomenon. And all that again demonstrates that these folks are prepared to do whatever necessary to maintain hegemony, to maintain white supremacy, to maintain white colonial capitalist supremacy. We've got to understand that and counter that. Okay. And so making those links is important. That's the power of the international framework. That's the power of having a materialist analysis. And that's the power of having a politics that's revolutionary and being bold enough and clear enough to articulate those policies and those politics.
And I cannot help but respond with a little bit of egotism. So stop asking us what we do. What are we going to do? What do you do about all of this? Stop asking us about what is it? How y'all think y'all go? Stop asking us. Either join in the work with us or get out of the way. Thank you, Ajamu, for joining us today and giving us this very, very important update on.
But Africa, I know y'all got to go.
Well,
can I take 30 seconds?
Of course. See, I was trying to be a good.
I know we about to do.
Go ahead.
Look,
go ahead.
look. We and the public will know about this today. We're making the announcement today in the public about some marvelous changes taking place at the Black Alliance for Peace.
Ain't nobody
we're shifting the leadership of this thing. We always had leadership, but beginning on March 1st, Comrade Jacqueline Lugman will be the new chair of the coordinating committee for the Black Alliance for Peace. The national co-coordinators of the alliance will be Comrade Erica Austin Cole and Comrade Tunde. So we have this, and then along with Jackie as the chair, Sister Dribble Hill will be the vice chair. So we are making the transformation in terms of preparing ourselves for 2025, transformation in terms of generational and everything else. So we are really excited. The membership is excited. I'm excited. I will remain with the coordinating committee, but primarily just focus on the North-South Project for People-Centered Human Rights, a support structure for the work that we're doing about. And so I feel good because, and we couldn't do all this work too without the support that we get from the community movement builders that provide us the umbrella that we need and the input that we need too for doing this work that we're doing. So we got a real family and a serious family. And I just wanted to point out and just say how honored I am to be part of this process.
Thank you so much. He is way too modest because you don't see that kind of willingness to step aside and let somebody else come in and give things a shot. So we appreciate the leadership and the example that Ajamu has given us. Yeah.
He didn't tell you the other announcement though.
You don't have no.
He didn't let you know that?
No.
It's my hope and dream. It's my hope and dream.
No one can replace you, Conrad. All right, Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, bro.
Ain't nobody asked him to make that announcement. Nobody asked.
Yay.
Big up.
I know. When I need things, I know who to go to now. Like I got a new crew of people to go to. All right, good.
That was dang. We couldn't even have a little extended
We need to have a meeting right away at the end
No,
of
we
this.
don't. We don't. No, we don't.
I got a list.
No, actually, come out. We kind of do, but yeah,
Yeah, I know. I got a list.
yeah, we actually do though.
Yeah,
Mm.
we do. Yeah.
All right. Y'all need a little break? Quick break?
Yes.
I got you. Let's take a quick break right here on the Remix Morning Show, and we come back with some more right before we get up out of here. Let's do it like this. Right here we got one of my favorite bands, Masiki Scales and the Common Ground Collective, doing Expensive Shh by Fela Kuti. Enjoy.
What an I got you for you to butler. What an I got you for you to butler. He go bend here, she goes. He go come out away from him. It's gonna be the last thing where he go like to see. Cause why, yo? Because they shit, they smell. Cause why, yo? Because they shit, they smell. I'll bring a woman for you to butler. I'll bring a woman for you to butler. She go bend, she goes. She go come out away from she shit gonna be the last thing where she go like to see. Cause they why, yo?
Because the shit them smell.
Hey, cause why, yo?
Because the shit them smell.
Oh, run a man for you to butler. Oh, run a man for you to butler. No. He go bend here, she goes. From his shit gonna be the last thing where he go like to see. Cause why, yo?
Because the shit them smell.
Cause why, yo?
Because the shit them smell.
Ha! I kick, oh yeah, huh? I kick, oh yeah, huh? Seminar now. Me, I be Dash, I be Black Power, man.
Yes. That is Masiki Scales and Common Ground Collective, giving you a little bit of expensive shh from Fela Kuti. All right, with that said, let's get back to it right here on the Remix Morning Show. Let's go.
Tonight I've learned to fly so high.
I like that smirk on your face, Erica. What's going on?
Well, I was cracking up back here because I thought that was you screaming.
Yeah.
I thought the track was the band, and I thought you were just screaming.
Oh.
Yeah. The audio quality of that track made it sound a little interesting.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because you heard the singer prominently. So it literally sounded like it was you singing into the mic over a track of the band in the background.
Yeah, I was like this close for like coming off mute. Like, would you cut it out?
Yeah, that's one of my professors, Morris Brown, his band right there. Also the band I used to perform with. So I had to rock out, give him a little love. Yes, sir. All right. Well, it's about 11 minutes or 10 minutes left, so let y'all find another story or something if y'all want.
I have one little thing. It's like a quick Instagram thingy. Hold on, let me find it. Because I've seen it very quickly in passing, in the middle of the night. But apparently there is a few families in Bed-Stuy, I believe, that are being uprooted and from their homes by Zionist developers who are being protected by the NYPD currently. So the Instagram post is just a reel of the actions in support. There's been mass calls for assisting or calling particular numbers, getting folks to come out there and help. But as you can see, there's a plethora of NYPD police officers, alleged Zionist developers were standing out there as well, and they are evicting this family, and I think maybe a few others. What apparently has happened is there's been their deed. There's something fraudulent occurred. There's not too many details right now, so I'm hoping that they get deeper into the story. But there was something fraudulent that occurred with the deed, where they have now claimed ownership of the entire building, and they are removing the families out of this place. And so one of the things that Ajamu just mentioned that I thought was really important, even in terms of the IDF, and understanding the role of the IDF or the IOF in the U.S., primarily through the Deadly Exchange Program. So I did want to just highlight this so that folks can see the type of sort of protection that not only exists over there, but here as well. And then, with the NYPD headquarters being in Tel Aviv as well, like these direct connections to the sort of oppression and displacement happening in Gaza, as we're hearing Trump talk about, setting up buildings and taking over Gaza, and what is happening currently in this historically Black and more so Caribbean neighborhood in Brooklyn.
And also, this is just showing us it's just showing us what settler colonialism looks like. They're just uprooting people from their homes, just with no legal, just with illegally with the protection of the so-called law. That's what do you think they did in Palestine? This is exactly what they did in Palestine. And then they came with the military, with the militia, killing and shooting people. How are the pigs not the same as the IOF protecting the settlers who are killing people? And so for people who believe that these issues of international foreign policy, U.S. imperialism against other populations of people are not connected to us, yes, it is. They do the exact same thing to us that they do to other groups of people around the world.
When you look at the whole eviction system, like even so-called legal evictions, right? The folks who come out, whether it's rental evictions or whether it's taking people's property because they're late on their taxes or overwhelmed by the amount of tax payments after usually after they've already paid their mortgages off, right? It is the police and the sheriff departments that come out and force you out of your homes. And so these banks, these predatory landlords who stand on courthouses and then bid for your properties and get them at reduced rates. So this is all part of a system that's constantly churning out poor working class people, even lower middle class people who think they've made it. And then they're like 1 check, 2 checks, 3 checks away from eviction, and or some private taking or public taking of their land and property is always possible when they think some other interest, they being either developers, city government, thinks there's some other interests which should have superior rights over you as a person who's been paying either rent, mortgage, or taxes for decades. There is this comedy on Netflix called Mo, that is about a Palestinian man who is kind of left in lingo in terms of his status. And part of the second season they just completed is about him and his family being able to make a return to Palestine. And what's so great about it as a program is a Palestinian who reps Palestine. So he goes there and they show the real world way, which again is akin to the video we just saw and the history you just spoke about, of how Palestinians are treated so that people can get it. Their everyday lives, just like this video, are impacted by what white settlers want to do and what the IDF army does to allow them to do so. There's pictures of like the settlers in the West Bank trying to cut down Palestinian fruit trees and stuff like that, and how directly standing behind them is an IDF soldier with a huge machine gun protecting them as they do it. So this stuff continually works hand in hand. And that's why, again, as Ajamu was saying, and as y'all are saying constantly, is like Alliance for Peace does, it is only through the linking up of these struggles internationally that we stand a chance. And as Malcolm said, if you're not concerned about the Congo, or if you think you can solve the problem of Mississippi without solving the problem of the Congo, you've lost your mind. And so we can't solve the issues that we face domestically without linking up internationally with what's happening all over the world, because imperialism is a worldwide project.
Yeah.
And then finally, we should talk briefly. People kept asking about this in the chat. So yeah, Kim slightly misspoke yesterday when she talked about Chinese imperialism. And for me, which is not to say that there is not imperialism which the Chinese government is involved in, but it is not a worldwide imperialist system. If you ask Vietnam whether or not the Chinese can be imperialists, they would say they think they can be. But is it an imperialist system that is worldwide, world-reaching, in control? I would say not. But do big nations have imperial ambitions? I would say most of them do at times. I see your eyes squinted over there.
Oh, Lord.
They was calling you a liberal, son.
Yeah. Somebody said squints in London.
Right. Like,
You know what? We don't have enough time. We
We'll
don't
have enough time. We'll debate it.
We do not have enough time. We'll pick that up tomorrow. But it's right here. What did I say? What did I say when that man issued that executive order with that fake ass buyout? What did I say? A whole lot of people are going to take the buyout. And folks were like, oh, don't be ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous. We rely on our jobs. No, that's you. That is you. You are not among these 20,000. I bet you most of these folks are white.
Oh, I'm gonna do the squinted eyes look on this one. So there's more to talk about there. No, I think there's a lot of folks.
I'm not saying they're all.
Yeah.
No. I'm not saying they're all.
Yeah.
But I would be surprised if the majority were not. I would be
There's
surprised.
people who are looking to get out of, I guess, what they see as this chaotic system that is really either depleting their ability to do the jobs they thought they were doing, and or they don't want to do the type of work that Trump is now. You look at the Department of Education, Civil Rights Division, they're literally telling people to start looking at anti-Semitic complaints or anti-Semitism complaints as what they should be doing in terms of their work. And so there are people who are looking, who don't trust what the federal government is offering, because that too, this offer here is like you said earlier, a lot of this is going to be settled in court. The resources of the federal government runs out in March, where they have to, and they're promising some of these extensions, so these payouts to last until September. And so there's a lot of like, but yeah, a lot more.
Sounds like a good discussion for tomorrow. So make sure y'all come back, and we will give you some more of that discussion. What's coming
had a
up?
last word.
Oh, you got last word? Go ahead and rock it out.
Shit, if I did. Nothing to report. Oh, I did write a bit about prison imperialism. So and the situation with El Salvador in the U.S. that is on my Patreon that came out this morning. There's another event for BAT Baltimore on the 28th. And then also the town hall on the 15th. Both events will be interrogating the concept of eternal colonialism, the militarization around Baltimore, and how do we fight back. We are pushing the idea of don't panic, join the planning. So come outside, masks provided, masks required, food and refreshments always provided. You can find the information on BAP_Baltimore on Instagram.
I heard pushing that P. What you got going on, Jackie?
Black Agenda Report. I've got an article about the demise of DEI, and it should be out today. This week, History Rewind, week 4 from January, and week 5 will be up later on as we close out the month of January for History Rewind, and we'll start February on my Patreon, and I owe Black Liberation Media one of those videos, so that'll be dropped on your Patreon for Black Liberation Media this week, Friday. Darker Than Blue, more on the Clinton era legislation that is the foundation for what we are seeing today, which means another extended show with the Dark Room, getting into that. And that's what I got this week.
All right, great. And then Kamal, buy your tickets. Buy your tickets. Big
I'll do
show
more
coming
tomorrow.
up.
I have to jump. So
Yeah, got you. All right, cool. Well, we'll see y'all tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Thank y'all for tuning in. And always, Remix is here for you. We out. Peace. Do I got a song?